Awesome. Well, we'll just go ahead and dive on in, and if people come in, they can go ahead and join. So just how tonight will go. So first we just have a couple ground rules, and I mean, it's super simple, basically just staying on mute while you're not speaking. If you have any questions later, of course, unmute, but just in case there's any, feedback within the noise. So just staying muted. And then any questions you do have, just leave them to the end for Q&A. So if something comes up for you, you can go ahead and just jot that down and just kind of have it off to the side to ask after. And of course, if you have like water, tea, a journal, and a pen, if you want to take notes, I will give you guys a copy of this PDF as well, and we'll dive even deeper into what it has. But some people I know learn better from taking notes. I do that too. So yeah, so just a couple of ground rules there. And then I'm just gonna have us start with a meditation. So I'll lead that in a second. And then I'll move into why this was created, a deeper look into the offering, and then we'll finish with Q&A. So we'll go ahead, and I'm actually gonna stop sharing while we meditate. So if you can, wherever you are, just go ahead and get comfortable. So if you're in a chair, perhaps bring your feet to the floor, and wherever else you're seated, just go ahead and sit up as tall as you possibly can. And beginning to close the eyes and start to root down through the sits bones, just finding that sense of grounding, stability, support. And on the inhale, just beginning to lengthen through the crown of the head, the spine gets long and strong. And just finding 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths just to arrive to this space. Just filling up the lungs and the rib cage on the inhales. And just emptying out on the exhales. And one more round like that. And just returning back to any natural flow of your breathing. And then as you're here, just start to bring awareness towards your heart center. And just taking this time to connect with your heart. You can even place your hands over it if that feels nice for you. And then as you're connecting to your heart, just notice how you're feeling once again. And just noticing if there's any excitement, nervousness, if you feel calm and relaxed, or maybe a little heightened right now. And just taking this time to connect. And then from your heart center, begin to visualize just this bright light. It can be a white light. And visualizing that light just coming directly from the heart center. And from here, that light begins to connect with all the other beings in this space, whether you know who is in here or not. So just feeling that light of energy from your heart center moving towards the other beings in this space. So as you do this, essentially transcending the screen and just moving into this sense of community, feeling that connection with those around you. And then just knowing that those around you are other like-hearted and like-minded beings on this journey with you. Perhaps sharing in similar beliefs or values or thoughts. And so as you take this time to connect to others, again, just feeling that sense of community through the screen. There's a Buddhist word I love. It's called kula, and it translates essentially to intentional community. It's the feeling that life is best when shared. And as you're here, just beginning to let go of any visualization, any additional practices, and just returning back to your own body, back to your own breath. And just tuning in once again energetically to how you're feeling. You can slowly bow your chin towards your chest and start to bring your hands together, just rubbing them briskly as you create a sensation of heat. Maybe moving them a little bit faster, and then opening up the hands over the heart and just sending that healing presence, that light, love, anything you feel like you may need or just want to be wrapped up in right now. And if you'd like to move that healing presence to anywhere else in the body, you can go ahead and just move the hands over wherever you feel like you'd like that. You can slowly begin to open the eyes. Just coming back up to the screen whenever you are ready, no rush. Awesome, thank you. I always love for all of us to just get grounded in the space that we're in beforehand and just find that connection, whether we're together or far, far away. So we will go ahead and dive right in. And I'm just gonna open up this document so we have it. Awesome. Okay. So essentially, Yoga Teacher Revolution. This is our 10-day immersive business retreat in Nepal to help other yoga teachers creating that business growth and just starting out to lead retreats if perhaps you have no idea where to start or maybe a little bit newer on the path and just want to learn a little bit more. So the reason that this was created essentially was that when I started out with all of this, I did my yoga teacher training in 2014, and I really started diving into retreats in about 2017. And I had a lot of, different experiences and things I felt like I could bring in. But at the same time, I really wish that I had someone that could have walked me through all of this, that I had a mentor, basically someone who had already been where I desired to go. And that wasn't really something that I could find at the time. So it was basically I had to figure it out on my own, which is a beautiful process that I'll get into later. But, I was just thinking about how great it would be to have a mentor or just someone within this space. So that's kind of like that overall idea of just how this came about was I can't find this. So I'm going to create this so I can help other teachers with essentially the things that I was looking for. And my mission with yoga teachers really is to help them move into that role of conscious leadership, impact, and prosperity. So when I talk about this, it's mostly that leadership in a way of basically getting so rooted in who we are and what we desire to teach and our values, our beliefs, like again, just knowing who we are and where we desire to go and finding that basically that sense of, other people connect with you because they trust you and they respect you and they see and they hear and they understand you. And in this role of leadership, it's almost like helping other people to walk alongside with you. And essentially it's like, okay, this is also where I desire to go with these other like-hearted and like-minded beings. So that's how I kind of see that role of leadership and that impact. So this was always my thing of like, when I wanted to create a business was how can I do this in a conscious way that's going to have a positive impact on other people's lives as well as the world. And I think that's a huge part of what yoga is about as well. And the last thing is prosperity. So I feel like a lot of times we hear this word and we think of money, which it absolutely can be, but being prosperous is so much more than that. So it's prosperous in our relationships. It's prosperous within our health, our career, and money as well. And just essentially like that well-being. So just feeling like so abundant, so filled up and just literally fulfilled by what we're doing too. And I also think within this process and in this path, it's like we find so much meaning within all of this, especially as, we get to know ourselves, and it's just kind of creating this path of possibility for others as well. And, my big thing, it's like, if I can do this, anyone else can do this as well. And I really do believe that. So it's just kind of, sharing these tools and sharing our experiences along the way. And so, yeah, essentially that is what I want the space to be about, is helping other yoga teachers to also share their mission and to be able to share yoga. And we'll get into more of that later too. And the other thing is just like, yoga teachers deserve to be prosperous within their dharma. And there's a lot of burnout within teaching yoga as well. And it's definitely a very challenging path. And I think it's important that we feel like fulfilled by this and sustained by this, because there's so much just amazing, yoga is amazing, obviously, right? Like we all know that. And there's so much to share within that. So it's really like, I just believe that teachers should feel fulfilled by this and feel sustained by this as well. And like, with Dharma, it's like, we are meant to do this, and it's finding this path of what we're meant to do, essentially, and like how we do what we do, and all these elements of like other elements of Dharma. And within Dharma, we have to find these resources, or artha, which is basically the tools or resources we need to fulfill our Dharma. And so that's why I want a lot of this, this container, this training to be, is just finding these tools to essentially fulfill that Dharma. And it's a lifelong path as well, so, which is beautiful. And then the other thing, it's just simply like wanting more happy people in this world. And just by, we all know the benefits of yoga, and like just how much it's graced our lives, essentially. So being able to share that with other people, I think is super important. And again, also as the facilitator of this, like, you too deserve to be happy and to live a life of like meaning and joy and fulfillment. So yes, it's about, finding the service of others, but it's also like, we cannot give what we do not have. So there is this element of like, let's fill ourselves up too, and be able to like be sustained by that. And then being able to kind of share that with others as well. And then like the last two like really important ones, I think. So when I originally was starting to create Yoga Teacher Revolution, I was going to have it as a just like a virtual course. And when I was thinking about it more, I thought it would be just really cool to make this a retreat. And essentially it's having that firsthand experience of actually being on a retreat and seeing everything kind of like come together, like all the pieces of it. And literally, there's not much, so we can research and we can learn and we can read books and do all of this stuff, but there's not much more powerful than actually having that experience. So that was kind of my concept around this, of like, let's make this a retreat. And it's really just like finding that complete immersion within this retreat space. And then the reason I chose Nepal for this, so this is where I did my first 200-hour yoga teacher training in 2014. I absolutely fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the people, the culture, the food, just the environment in itself, and just what it has to offer and share. Like that alone gives us a space to basically get so focused within all of this. And when you think about it, giving yourself this gift of going to Nepal for 10 days is essentially, you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean, you don't have other work to do. You might not have, if you have a family at home, like you're not cooking or all of that other stuff, right? So essentially it's like we get to pour all of our energy and our focus in to this creation of these retreats and into this business retreat. So like you have 10 days that are really dedicated to yourself. And we know from meditation, like when we can get still and when we're in that silence, like all of that creativity surfaces and we get clear, like the mind literally clears, right? We get rid of all the clutter, all the things that hold us back in life, and we can start to push that off to the side and find that clarity within moving forward. So I just believe that having this space alone and having that time, like either together or by yourself, like that alone, there's so much power within that space. And me, I can it can be really hard for me to focus sometimes, especially when, schedules are crazy and I'm like, I have to cook dinner and I need to clean and all of these things, like it can feel chaotic. So I know for me personally, like really giving myself that time to get quiet and get still just helps me flourish within all of this so much more. So I could just kind of see this as like a gift. And if you haven't been to Nepal, you might want to move there. We wanted to move there when we first went, and it's just a really, really special place. And I don't know if you read on the webpage, but where we're doing this in Hotel Tulsi is literally where I did my first yoga training too. So I'm really excited to be back in that space, and literally people from all over the world have come to this space. So I think like the energy of that is also really cool. Okay, so my promise to you. So within this, I promise to hold nothing back and will literally share everything I know and have been through. So there's nothing I'm keeping for myself, nothing that I don't want you to know. I'm literally giving you everything that I know. And I'll go over my successes, my failures, the obstacles and challenges I've been through, as well as the lessons I've learned, how and why I push forward, what to do and not to do, sharing 6 years of feedback from past retreat participants, and so much more within that. So really this container, all of this is 10 years of just research, of studies, of implementing certain things and then fine tuning them as well, right? There's this element of trial and error, which I think is really important. And, my hope is to maybe compress that trial and error for you by maybe sharing my own experience. And of course, we have to go through challenges and obstacles. And my hope is by sharing some of my challenges and obstacles, number one, it will remind you that you're not alone and that there are struggles within this and there are hardships within this. And I also hope by sharing some of these, perhaps I can give you some of the insight and wisdom of how to handle them for yourself. So that's my idea within that and my hope. And essentially all of this, so from my experience, my stories, this is really a combination of yoga studies, of study abroad trips. I studied business in Spain, Buddhist philosophy in India and Cambodia. So from kind of my travels alone, that's what really helped me feel confident in starting to create some of these retreats. So I want to share a lot of that knowledge of just things I've learned from my travels, the chaoses of travels, as well as the beauty of travel. And I also think travel is so awesome because it really teaches you about who you are. I mean, it's very similar to yoga that when we're faced, I'm sure if all of you have been on a trip before, something has probably gone wrong, whether your bag was lost or your plane was delayed or all sorts of things. And it really shows us like how we hold ourselves in those situations. So, doing all of this just helps us to figure out who we are essentially. So also some of my background is business management degree, just investing in multiple business coaches, life coaches, marketing strategists, things that I've learned from them, just research of podcasts, of business summits I've been to, personal studies, conversations with experts. And then the big one for me is really just like my own life experience. So like I said, travels, being a student and a teacher, managing businesses, and then my own entrepreneurial journey. And I think the beautiful part of like starting to create your own retreats and create your own really like this conscious business essentially is that you get to bring in your life experiences and your studies, and that gets to look completely different than mine. And then anybody else's, of course. So it's not even so much about like what we have done, but it's really like who we've become in the process. And when I look at all of that, I think about all of this has helped me be here today and has given me the tools and the insight and the wisdom to be here today. And it's really who I've discovered myself to be within the process of this. And the last thing I'll say on this is my promise is to be real, open, and honest and vulnerable with you. I'm not going to sugarcoat this process and say that anyone can do it. I'm going to share the hardships of it as well as the beauty of it, and just really giving you like this full spectrum of the journey to educate and encourage you to then create your own presence within this. And yeah. I think that feels good right now. So awesome. I feel like I was going to maybe add something else, but it'll probably come up later. So what I wanted to just break down essentially was, if you've seen kind of on that first page, I have a few layouts of essentially like what you will learn and what we will really focus on. So I want to just dive a little bit deeper into that rather than just you getting like one sentence. I just wanted to share a little bit more on what that means. So the very first thing that you'll be getting within this yoga teacher revolution is not the very first thing, but a big part of it. So obviously like how to construct your own retreats. So this is the first thing we kind of start with is this retreat creation. So one thing I really believe in is, of course, the self-development tools. This is the meditation, the journaling, our own sadhana, our own yoga practice. To really help us create an offering that comes from our own values, heart, and soul. And knowing our values is one of the most important things within business as well, of just because that's when we can feel true to ourselves and we can start to figure out our path a little bit easier. Like the more connected we are to ourselves, the easier it is to make decisions with like in an alignment with that version of ourselves. So that's kind of the first thing I like to do is just, like, let's get clear on that. Let's use some of these like amazing yoga practices that we know and have already done, and perhaps use it from a different lens or a different perspective. So we'll also go over retreat center logistics. So this is how to choose a retreat. I'll give you green and red flags to look for, questions to ask, the payments, like the process of it, contracts, etc. So you'll also get checklists from me. So these are checklists for retreat development and step-by-step process for creating each element. So this is, you think about like everything that goes into a retreat. So couple things here of just like descriptions, pricing, and website. So essentially you'll have like this whole step-by-step process and how to do each and every one of those. Basically anything that you think, and probably so much more that goes into a retreat, we will cover and go over. And I think someone's starting to come in. Awesome. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So then we move into, this FSW retreat 3-step process. This is kind of how I look at this is we have like the pre-retreat process. So this is your onboarding. So you'll be given bookings, invoices, waivers, welcome packets, the retreat hub that I use, and email communication. So essentially we'll go over how to create all of these to be able to give as that, so it's the onboarding process, right? Like as soon as people sign up, you want to make them feel supported and nourished and like they're already being taken care of. And that is, there we go. So that's kind of the concept behind that onboarding process. And then we'll also go over during a retreat. So this is transportation, how to schedule your retreat, class offerings, excursions, how to schedule in free time, managing your participants, and taking care of yourself as a retreat leader. This is like super important because maybe if you notice this when you first started teaching yoga, if you are actively teaching, they do say that one of the first things to go can be your own practice. And this can also happen on retreats. So I want to really go over a way to encourage you to still make yourself a priority on these retreats and to really take care of yourself. And just like I said before, like we cannot give what we do not have. So it is important, to stay connected to our own practices as well. So we'll go over some of that. And then, basically how to create a schedule, like finding enough time for deep studies, for free time, the excursions, like all the elements that you want to add in together. And then the post retreat. So this is basically follow-up email with packets, sending basically things that you kind of went over, things that you might want to reiterate. Maybe there's a link to some meditations that you did that you want to give them, pranayama practices, resources you talked about, anything like that. And then within this, like continue to support. So this could be joining, like I do like these, VIP email list type of thing. So once you've gone to a retreat, you get like first access to the rest of my retreat. So we'll kind of go over things like that. And then also how to continue to nurture those email, students and participants as well. And then this is also going over like testimonials and surveys, maybe special offers that you give. So essentially the way I look at this too is, for me, like the retreat starts for someone, like the moment someone is even interested, that's when this process starts to happen, right? That's when I want to start to talk to them and nurture them and whatever type of communication and conversation it is. And then making sure that all the way up until the retreat, they feel like really ready to go, that they know where they're flying into and what to pack and all sorts of things like that. And so just getting really clear on that. And then Yeah. So, and then for me, it ends really like when they get home. It's not even when the retreat ends, essentially. It's like making sure they got home okay, and then continuing to give them the things to take this retreat with them. And the way I look at it for myself is that this retreat, again, just doesn't end on the day the retreat ends. Like I want them to take this with them for the rest of their life and continue to become this version of themselves, of whatever the retreat focus is for whatever retreat I'm leading is, so they continue to take all of those elements with them as well. And that's something that I really want to encourage them to do. And I think that this really separates retreat leaders also. And obviously there are thousands of people leading retreats out there, and maybe some of you already do lead retreats. And I think these are just some of the ways to kind of separate yourself, and also to give in a way that just feels really good, and to make other people feel really good. I feel like that's what a lot of it comes back to too. Okay, so then we go into, so how to discover your personal mission. So this is the heart of your business and essentially your why behind it. So within this, we'll start to do some work on like identifying your niche, your target audience, your values, purpose, goals, like what's your contribution to others. And one example is, how do you want to make them feel? So it's even getting really clear on that, so you can start to speak to that to them even beforehand. So within this mission too, again, like this helps you develop this clear path of where you decide to go. And this helps you make decisions basically throughout your business and your life. And you can think about, when you have these values and these missions, if when you get to a point that retreat centers are reaching out to you and they want you to come lead a retreat, and you can kind of check out that place and see, what are your values, and are my values in alignment with yours? And if they're not, it's a pretty easy answer of, no, that's not going to work out for me. And if they are, okay, maybe that's like a hell yeah. So that's why I think some of this stuff is really important, because it just gives you clarity on this path of where we're going to, which feels really good, right? It feels good to feel clear in life and just to have that within us. And then my big thing too, on like knowing our why, is this helps us to break down the resistance that holds us back, because there's going to be resistance. We get terrified. We have to move out of our comfort zone. I'm nervous every time I lead a retreat, have a brand new group. I was terrified before this. Like, it's just getting out of that comfort zone. So when we can come back to our why, like, why am I showing up for this? Why am I doing this? It starts to basically, you move into that love over that fear, which is the next thing. So it's like, okay, this means so much to me, and I know I can do this. I know I can share this with others. And to me, like, that is more important than the fear that I have that is keeping me here, because I want to go here and I want other people to come here with me, and I don't want to stay here. So that's where I think that just knowing that why helps us so much. And I know for me, like personally, it has helped me so much. And then the last thing with this mission statement is it really starts to magnetize the people who are meant to be in your offerings and starts to repel those who are not. And there is an element, like maybe you've heard, what is it, like soulmate client, or, all sorts of terms like that. There really is, like, there's this group of people that you want to be around, like these other people that light your soul on fire. Like, we want to feel that way. And it's really, it's like that mutual receiving, and that, like, that energy of, it's like, I don't know. I know we're meant to be together in this space and like share in this space together. So there are those people out there, and you are probably going to find the people that you might not even want to invite back on another retreat before. And we can get into that also. But it's all learning lessons too. But yeah, these mission statements are just really important to start to focus on some of these things. So another thing we'll talk about within this is how to create and execute your vision clearly. So again, this is the self-development tools to help you get clear on what you wish to offer and bring into this world. So we find this balance of like self-development as well as the tactical tools to help us implement and take action. And that can be the really hard part too. So having these tools to help us take action obviously makes that action a little bit more digestible and a little bit easier to say. And then one of the things I really want to offer within this is that you will create kind of one signature retreat. And I think a lot of times with yoga teachers, and this is, I guess, from my personal experience too, is we learn so much in teacher training or just over the time of other workshops we take. And it's like, we want to share everything. And I was like, I'm going to make 20,000 workshops all in my first year because there's so much I want to share. And instead it was like, okay, how can I focus this down and kind of create one thing where I can kind of, put myself as the expert in a sense. And I feel better teaching it because I can feel more confident on really focusing on maybe that one thing to begin with, rather than all of these other things. So So one of the things that I did was just for me personally, when I started out, was kind of finding like this signature retreat. So I would go to the Smoky Mountains every year, which is about 4 hours away. And, their prices were pretty affordable and people could drive here. And it was just a nice way for me to start out doing some of these. So it was 3 nights and now I'm doing my 5th year. I'm adding in another one this year, but essentially I was able to kind of, critique the schedule, able to kind of get, to be able to get feedback from the past retreat participants of what they liked and what they didn't like. And so there's like, this element of like, okay, let's tweak it to find success and then continuing to do that and feeling like really good about that. Cause there's also this element of wanting to feel, really confident in what we're doing and feel like secure within that and then being able to move forward. And another thing you might realize is maybe it's not your desire or not your dream of what you created. So it can be, that also can show you to maybe move on too. But my kind of idea is to stick with one retreat and then maybe you add in like one other retreat and then eventually starting to build up from there as you've kind of created just the success in a sense of feeling good. And another thing I'll say, I'm not going to dive into this too much, but remember that success is really only measured on the way we measure it. And that's another thing we'll talk about too. Like you have to define what success means for you within these retreats as well. So like what success looks like for one person might not look like that for the other. And obviously we have, kind of a concept of success, but there really is so much more to it. So I just wanted to say that real quick, that we kind of, we measure that for ourselves. And so the last thing within this part is we'll do some market research. And this is something we might even do together during the retreat, as well as branding and marketing. So this is just how we get that offering out into the world. Like that's how we start to, again, magnetize the people that we want to be in here in this space, or that like they see something and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like they're speaking to me, that type of stuff. So we want to start to create some of that as well. So we'll dive super deep into like branding and marketing and all of that fun stuff too. Okay, how we doing? I know most people are on mute, but we're good. Okay, awesome. Perfect. So the other thing we'll go over is how to develop a launch strategy. So I have a launch timeline that I'll give all of you. And this is basically how we nurture potential attendees as well, how we speak to them. It's basically, if you've heard of like the cold, warm, and hot leads, we're doing some work around that too, of maybe turning cold leads into warm leads into hot leads. And essentially the hot leads are the ones that buy from us or join us. So we'll talk about that too. And then these are tools to use within the launch strategy we'll go over. There's a bunch. So just the type of tools that are best. Do's and don'ts of a launch is a big thing that we'll talk about. And then energy of a launch. And honestly, this might be the most important aspect of getting like just excited about this and finding our own energy within it, because launching things can bring up a lot for us too. And this is where we it's easy to be, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved. And we can get into those states sometimes. So we'll work on some of that stuff around like finding like the energy of a launch. And my goal within giving you like this launch timeline, which it took me quite a few years to figure out a strategy of how to do this. And essentially this past year, when I did my launch in July, I sold out my first Italy retreat within 2 months. And then I was able to add on additional dates. So now I'm doing back-to-back retreats. And since some of the other retreats are doing well, then I decided I could add in the True Nature retreat, the Smoky Mountains retreat. So these are things that having like that proper launch strategy really helped me. And it took me, I would say, probably 5 years to figure that out. So yeah. And the other thing too with it is kind of finding your success within it and feeling good about it also. And, I can give you all of this, or I will give you all of this, like I said, but, it might not, everything might feel great for you or feel true to you either. So you can tweak that, of course, because I don't want any of this to be like, none of this is like, you have to do this to find success. It's not about that, because when people start telling us that, that's when we start to kind of drift away. And I had a business coach that was like, no to this and do this. And the do felt really icky to me and I didn't like it and I didn't do it. And I ended up doing the no. And that felt really good for me. And I found more success within that. So that is one thing like we'll talk about. And I want to say is like, when it comes down to it, all of this has to make sense to you and has to feel good for you too, because it's not my retreat business. Like I'm not doing this. I just want to give you the tools to feel really good about this as well. And to feel a little bit more confident and organized and empowered within it. So, but the thing, like the nice thing is when you find that strategy, you can repeat, and then just fine tune little things here and there, and of course we grow all the time. We change our writing, we add in new things, we take out things, we realize we had a, grammatical error from 2 years ago. I don't know, things like that. So, just staying up to date on those things too. Awesome. So the other thing we'll talk about is building and nurturing student relationships. And a lot of you probably already do this, especially if you already are teaching. But I think like for me, when I first started off teaching classes, essentially everyone from that studio was coming on these retreats. So it was people taking my classes, kind of learning who I was, being in like my energy of that space, and then finding trust to then go on a retreat with me. So for me, teaching classes was like the best way for me to build that relationship with students, and also to be confident, to find like my confidence within teaching and to lead retreats too. This also shows up in marketing. Presence, this is just like having a presence. A lot of this is showing up when we're terrified to show up too. And this can be a presence on social media, presence on email marketing, just presence in classes. There's all sorts of ways, but a lot of it is just like, this is me, here I am, I'm ready to share and I'm ready to give. But it's like the more people see you and get to know you, that of course builds trust too. And then we'll talk about different communication techniques as well, whether it's, talking about before a retreat, during a retreat, after a retreat, all sorts of things like that. Because there is, I had a business coach say one time, and, she was like, it's much harder to keep getting new people. But she was like, once you get, a couple of people, it's great to like, continue to support and nourish them so they continue to come back. So that's like a big element too of like staying in relationship with it too, if you choose to be both in relationship again. And I will say, I've had people on my retreats that I've taken off of my email list just because of things have happened. And I don't even know if they would want to come back either, but things of just like spaces, just some things that happen. So I will say that, and those are things that we learn how to manage that space for others as well, and how to essentially put ourselves in that leadership role to take care of whatever is going on. So not to like scare you, but some of that stuff does come up as well. So yeah. And essentially within this, it's just creating trust so they feel comfortable to be led on a retreat with you. And then, wanting them, like they want to come back and come back and come back, or take your classes or whatever other offerings you're doing. Like they want to continue to do that with you. All right, we're almost done. And then you guys get a chance to talk or ask questions. So we'll also go over all these tools to optimize and maximize your offerings. So my favorites, I use Wix for my website platform. I just put website though, because some people might have a different one. If you don't have a website, we'll literally, we can like start to build your website too, or we can fine tune your website also. Like that's a really big thing, of like the web pages. That can kind of make or break people. I didn't realize how, I feel like my web pages weren't very good when I started off a few years ago, but in a sense, they didn't really have to be as much because everyone was coming from my studio and kind of knew me. And now that I'm, connecting with people that I don't know who they are, we definitely want to like change that of how we show up on there too. So I have like a whole checklist of things we'll go over as well. Social media, obviously. And also if you don't have social media and you're not big on social media, like this isn't forced. I'm not like a social media expert by any chance, but but I have a lot of background from other people that I've learned from and things I've learned to implement. So again, I'll share that with you if it feels icky for you, like it's not a make or break type of thing. Gmail, this is like my go-to for like documents and sheets and forms, all sorts of things like that. Canva, Flowdesk, Calendly, Notion, invoicing, and then we'll go over why and how we use these tools plus the benefits they offer. So we'll dive pretty deep into each of these too. All right. So feeling confident, empowered, and organized within your business. So essentially this builds as you implement all of the other steps above. Obviously, the more we do something and show up with something, the more confident we get, which is why I think it's great to have a signature retreat and kind of like, share. I share Ayurveda on pretty much every retreat that I do. But with the Ayurveda, I learn and I grow, so I get to critique that as well. So it's like, maybe it's the same offering essentially, but it's shared in a different way because you learn and grow as well. But that's how you get to be, becoming like that expert in that field, or just becoming more confident within that too. I also think it's super important to stick to your own spiritual and yoga practices, which is a big thing that we'll focus on and talk about too. Always stay connected to yourself and your why, and then continue to show up, like I said. So if you think about it, like, imagine what you can accomplish when you stick with something long enough, and maybe just like let that sink in for a moment. But to me, like, that's one of the big things that kept me going for a long time too, is like, imagine what can happen if I stick with this and continue to do this. And that's also, this comes from, like, knowing our dharma and knowing our why and knowing our mission, like all of that. Like, when you know that, you basically find the willpower, the determination, the discipline, the dedication to continue. Like, you overcome any obstacle that you're faced with and start to learn, like, this obstacle was put here for a reason, and I am now a better person because of it, or I've learned and grown because of it. Yeah. And then the last thing on here too, so like, discipline equals freedom. And a lot of times, I think a lot of us, if you are wanting to build like this conscious business, there's a sense of like wanting freedom, maybe not wanting to work for anybody else. If you want to do this full time, being able to build your own schedule, being able to work from anywhere, some of these elements, but that freedom doesn't come without the discipline. It doesn't come without, the dedication, the time, the effort, the work, the sustained focus. So that'll be really like a big focus within all of this too. And just think of it like your yoga practice, right? Like, that's why we call it a practice, not a perfect, is it something that we're doing for the rest of our life. And this essentially is that as well. And I think it's super cool that we essentially, like, as yoga teachers, we get to put everything that we've learned, like, we get to literally put the amazingness of these teachings to work. And, finding these practices, and like, for me, I mean, meditation and breathing practices and journaling and like all the inner work that I've done has helped me with this business so much. I mean, I would have quit probably a couple of years ago or a few years ago if I didn't have my yoga practice. And that is what has sustained me. And like, that yoga practice is, I mean, my business is an expression of that. And I think that's what I talk about here. But so this whole thing, it's like sharing the heart of yoga with others. And this is what this comes back to, is sharing the heart of yoga within these retreats. And as yoga teachers, like, our primary goal is to share yoga, whatever, style or focus that you love within yoga, you're sharing that primarily. And for me, like, I'm assuming that you're here because yoga has changed your life and you want to continue to share that with other people. So, and like, this is already something you do because you already do this like through your classes and sharing your life experiences, your studies, anything else. And now your business is just like a different expression of what you already do. And it's essentially like taking it to the next level, being able to share it with more people, perhaps creating a bigger impact as well. And yeah, like, your contribution. So yeah, expanding the teachings as well. But I just think it's super cool that it's like, we get to literally put all of these amazing teachings to work within our business. So it's like, we get to practice that and do it. And then we also get to share that with others and literally like show the world how powerful these yoga practices and teachings are. So for me, I think that that's super cool. And I think that's something that can like just separate yoga teachers even like from other business owners. And I guess, just like I said, to say it again, it's like, all of these practices within yoga have really helped me become like one of the best business owners that I can be right now. And the last thing I'll say on that, if you ask like any highly successful person or even like millionaire, billionaire, all of them will tell you they meditate. That is like their secret sauce, is they meditate. So again, just to like reiterate that. Okay, so the last thing I'll touch on here, or second to last thing, is just the sample schedule, just so you have an idea of this. So 7:30 to 9 a.m. would be morning yoga. This will be a combination of meditation, breath work, different yoga practices, essentially just so like you can work on yourself first thing in the morning. So you can, get some of this energy out, so you can clear the cobwebs, so you can come home to yourself and then do all of this work like from that space of feeling home, like being back in your true nature. My yoga teacher created this thing called a sadhana journal as well, that anyone who signs up is also gets this out in a journal that'll be sent to you before. And it's a 3-month journal that I will have you guys do every day while you're here. But it's a great practice because we do like a Dharma code, we'll do a Sankalpa, we write down you write down your goals every day. So it's just a great way to also stay within this yoga practice too, and like to remember why you're doing this. And there's so much power in like writing this stuff down every single day as well. So that's like a big part of this too. And then you'll have like an hour break for breakfast. So for 2 hours, business of retreats. So this is the lecture and Q&A. This will be basically going over like different workshops. So it'll be self-development. We'll do focus more on self-development in the beginning of the retreats, just because again, we want to get clear on that. So it'll be different workshops, different practices, again, discussion, lecture, Q&A. So this is where you're really getting like the education, the wisdom, the teachings, all of this stuff within this time. So lunch and free time, I'm going to come back to a note on free time, but the other 2 hours, so 5 to 7, this is either networking or working sessions. So the working sessions are where we are literally going to start putting all of this to work. So this is time for you to research your retreats, to start creating your own retreats. And this is time for me to give you feedback and others to give you feedback, and for yourself to give yourself feedback. But my whole intention, and this is what you put into this retreat obviously is what you get out of it. So some people literally might leave in 10 days with a retreat ready to go. Other people might not. And that is totally up to you and what, again, you want to get out of the space. And if it's, don't feel pressured by that of, oh, I have to have a retreat in 10 days. It's not like that at all. But and if you don't, again, you have the tools to take with you to keep doing it. But I really wanted to give you guys like working sessions to just start to do this and like start to take action and implement it. And then the other days for networking, this will be for everyone to start to come together. So building community. The other thing I recognize is not everyone might want to do retreats by themselves. So like you might meet like your soul business partner within this space. Like you might find someone who is so aligned with you that you two want to do retreats together. Or it's just, again, finding space for feedback. This could also be time for market research as well. We'll ask other people in the space questions. What do you think of this? Stuff like that. So yeah. And then like the note I have on free time here. So this is either like exploring the beauty and culture of Pokhara. And I do really want all of you to enjoy the time in Nepal, especially if you haven't been to Nepal before and this is like a big draw for you too. I'm not sure, but I want you to have that time, and most of my retreats I do are, we do excursions and cultural retreats. Since this is just a business retreat, I haven't included any of that in because I would just want to be super focused on this. However, I wanted you to have time to maybe do some of that on your own. Or the other option is really finding like that svadhyaya and that self-study and literally taking some of this time to also create your retreat. Like if you want to leave in 10 days with a retreat, like we can totally make that happen. So again, that's up to you. The other thing I decided to add in is office hours. So when we get closer, I'll talk more on it, but it'll probably be like 4 to 5. You can book like a short time with me to have some one-on-one time together. So if you want me to review anything you're doing, if you have questions for me, things like that, it's just for us like one-on-one to connect. So that'll be included with all of this too. And yeah, so just to close it all out. So like I've said, I'm going to give all of this to you and it's just up to you to implement it and take action from your own heart. No one else can do this for you, of course. And like I said, I guess I've said this before, but like, this is where we bring in our life skills, our yoga student and teaching skills to discover like that sustained effort and focus to keep moving forward, to find like that willpower of, yes, I am meant to do this. I know so deeply down inside that I'm meant to do this. And then like a big thing what we do through the yoga practices, just connection to your core. So it's like literally connecting to that limitless being within. It's that reminder that we can do anything we put our heart and soul to, and like reminding ourselves how capable, powerful, and worthy we already are. And my last little note is that I'm just here to walk with you and keep you accountable within this. And now I guess the very last thing I have before questions is I wanted to give all of you who are on here, and if you're already signed up, you'll automatically get this too. But if you register, if you decide to join and you register by Friday, January 27th with your $515 deposit, you'll get $200 off your total at the end. So you can use this YTR at checkout, either for a private accommodation or a shared accommodation. So yeah, that was my little thank you for being here and for listening and all of that. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing. So I think that's pretty much all I have for now. And does anyone have any questions, or I'd love to hear from you if you have anything you'd like to share. The floor is yours. No? Can I ask if, oh, awesome. Tim. Sounds amazing. Not sure those dates work, but sounds like a great opportunity. Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely, keep looking and see if the dates do work. This is something I'm hoping to start doing every year. It probably won't be in Nepal every year, but this was, like I said, this just felt like the perfect place to start and to do it. So that is my hope, is to continue to do this as well. But if the dates end up working out, that would be awesome too. But awesome.
Hey, sorry, you can hear me like frying chicken in the background. That's why I'm on. That's why my camera's not on. But hi, how are you?
Hi.
So I'm good and overworked as usual, but I am really curious and interested in, and I kind of want to get like the group thoughts on, maybe there's the person who would want to walk this path with me in the room, but I really want to combine the fact that, like, I have a lot of medical, physical anatomy knowledge, and I do a lot of healing practices that are both spiritual and physical. Like I am like Dr. Jessie Glaze, right? Like I have like a lot of Western and Eastern influences and credentials, and I'm really curious to see like how to turn that into a retreat to work on healing on a number of levels. And I'm very, very scattered in the way that I've thought about how would I even do what it is that I envision. And so I don't know if there's anybody else or anyone that's like in a similar space with that.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, but that's kind of one of the things I was hoping to get out of this, is like, how do you brand that? Because it is an interesting and eclectic mix.
Yeah. No, for sure. And you, so I know you do PT, like, so is that what you mean by doing your PT kind of?
Yeah. So like, yeah, I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I also do like physical, like body-based trauma healing. I have a background in PTSD, and then I do a lot of like chakra and energy stuff, and then the yoga stuff. And so there's just a lot of different and occasionally conflicting things that I do, and I'm not sure how to like reconcile it.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question.
Yeah, it's a big question, but
that's okay. And I guess, one of my biggest things, like I've learned for some of this too, is the market research and just seeing if there's a need for something like that, of course. I think, and I guess some of it's hard because it's like we kind of want to get clear on what it looks like before, we want to have some type of foundation and base for it.
Right.
And it's something I think you can definitely play. And I mean, you would definitely have like a very niche clientele, probably, especially depending on what you decided to focus on. But like my women's retreats, for example, sorry, one second. Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole. Yeah, it was so nice to meet you, and I hope you have a great night. And yeah, we can catch up directly too. So awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Sorry, Jessie. So I don't know if this kind of helps, but I guess within, my, sorry, like the women's retreats I do. So I do, yoga in the mornings, and then the evenings are more like women's empowerment workshops. So, and, they kind of intertwine together, of course, but I guess I'm only saying that because I wonder if something, in the mornings you did more of the yoga, or maybe even like chakra healing. And then in the evenings, you kind of tied in something else. And I guess it would have to be, if you want to be clear on if it's more like discussion based or if it's like physical movement. Yeah, I mean, I think we could definitely make it happen, but there would definitely be like some research and some elements that would go into it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not too familiar with anything around that, but I think it doesn't mean that it can't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know that's kind of what I think is I'm like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with what I know one other person who kind of does what I do, where she's a PT who does Reiki, and she's a priestess. She's in El Paso. So I don't know, maybe she'd be someone to talk to too, but she keeps everything very separate. And it's like, I think that everything I do is related. It's just kind of finding that core of it. So yeah, I look forward to talking to you more about it and kind of figuring stuff out. But yeah, I just had the question. I was like, I don't know, maybe there's somebody else in the chat who's this type of person, but it was kind of a long shot.
And I think right. And I think that's the cool thing of, we all come from different, backgrounds and walks of life, and, you never know who might be in that space with you. So I do think that that element is kind of cool. And, and it could just be, maybe starting off with just kind of more of like the energy work, like doing like the chakras and the Reiki, and yoga, and maybe sticking with that and kind of see how that goes. And then maybe it is adding in some of the other elements too. So maybe making it more simple for yourself and kind of just starting out with something. And like, especially if you want to, get used to leading retreats and doing that whole process as well. I would definitely say, simple, because I do think it's really easy to like, again, like I said, like bring everything that we want to do into a retreat. And I guess for example, like for me, I've started really, I guess, theming my retreats and having different focuses and really speaking to a certain like group of people, obviously. So that could be kind of something of just like getting that practice in, and maybe it is offering more of like the energy work, and then it could be expanding into something like else, or adding in more of the PT element. Or you could even offer like private sessions during the retreats too of like PT. Like
that's
that
actually I love all those ideas. I'm really glad that I came on, and I know I was like, I know that's like a totally like, here's the hardest question I could throw at you, but I really appreciate that, because
Awesome.
I have noticed the theming of the retreats, and I've been thinking a little about that, and I like that idea too of like, okay, make it, and the simplicity is always a nice thing to remember, because I don't keep anything simple ever. So
I feel it. I'm learning finally. So, but yeah, awesome. That is a great question though. And yeah, we can definitely chat more on it too. But awesome.
all right.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'll stay on for a little bit if anyone else has any questions or just wants to talk or share anything. If you feel complete from tonight and ready, to head out, then I'm super grateful that you were here. And if you know of anyone that might be interested too, please send them my way, or I'm happy to talk to them. And yeah, but thank you so much.